Hello and welcome to Renewable English. It is now our seventh interview of the series, and I'm joined today by Cherie, who is the freelance photographer. She's the founder of Sustainable Fashion Matters and Creative Matters Fund. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure, 100%. So I'm going to ask you a few questions because I don't know enough about sustainable fashion. I know a lot of the issues behind fast fashion, but I'd like your input and I'd like to have some of your expertise. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, if that's okay.
Sure, go for it.
So the first one is, now I'm always intrigued by people's inspiration. So what inspired you to get into sustainable fashion?
Oh, that's a long story, actually. So I studied fashion design, and before I studied fashion design, I just thought like, ooh, the coolest thing would be to be walking down the street and see someone wearing something I designed. But at that point, I shopped quite a lot of fast fashion, and yeah, that was definitely I don't know if you could say hobby of mine, but a thing I would do. And throughout my studies of fashion design, because I went to a school where you really learn the technique of the sewing and pattern making as well. And at one point I was just wondering, what is the difference actually between the next let's not name any names, like fast fashion collection and the really high-end designers, because the looks are copied so fast from the catwalk into the fast like high street shops. And for me, it was really in the material and in the quality of production that you really that the difference in in a high quality product and a low quality product isn't something you necessarily see like at first glance, but at a closer look and when wearing it, like if you wear certain materials, you have a very different smell. Like polyesters, I know I stink if I wear polyester, but when I wear natural materials, like everything is great. So that's where I think I would say my first like sustainability came in a way, but not because of sustainability, just because of kind of an appreciation for a good product, I would say. Mm-hmm. And then I worked in fast fashion for almost 4 years as creative director of a fashion company. And there, although I had already kind of this great appreciation towards like a quality product, it was still like a job I had, which I also enjoyed. I had nice people I was working with, but the essence of it was so in contradiction to me that I thought, wow, at that point I was like already not buying new stuff, like barely ever buying a new item of clothing or really looking that it's a high quality piece. But then I thought at the same time, I'm trying to make sure we sell more and more every month. And you see just all this stuff being returned, and we faced like issues of other items where there's like a button missing or like small little faults of what to do with it. And we didn't want to throw it away, but we were like, what are we going to do with this? And it actually took some months until we found one woman who took like huge amounts of like boxes of clothes from us, who was going to do something with that. So we thankfully could find a way to pass it on, but I felt like I was really creating just waste in the end of the day. And at some point then I decided to quit my job because it just felt so off to do something so contradictory to my actual values. And then my journey to the network of sustainable fashion, the sustainable fashion community really started. So I would say my journey towards sustainable fashion is definitely a gradual one. And I think in the end, it's always just, an awareness and a thinking process that maybe one time you didn't consider this certain aspect and then you do. And that just comes and becomes part of the way you make your decisions when you buy things or how you treat the things you have.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So the next question, now you touched on it in your last answer very briefly, but so can you tell everybody, why is fast fashion so bad for the planet?
Oh.
You don't have to go into like every single detail of it, but just a kind of overview for those people who have absolutely no idea.
I can definitely recommend checking out our website, Sustainable Fashion Matters, and our fact page, because we have a great collection of just hard facts on the fashion industry, from water pollution, it's I don't want to name any wrong facts here because I don't always have them on the top of my mind, but let's say, for example, a pair of jeans needs about 7,000 liters to be produced, with the cotton and the washing and all that comes together there, which is the amount of water we'll drink in maybe like 3 to 4 years. And this is often water that isn't necessarily drinkable after the whole process. So there are ways to produce with much less water. There are ways, if you buy secondhand, then you're already using what's there, and not fueling into this process. Sometimes, some people say with secondhand, then again, if you're paying someone, over like a secondhand resale platform, that you might be motivating them to then shop and buy new things again. But so there's many ways of going about it to be more sustainable in that. But yeah, fashion industry is a huge polluter of water, huge creator of CO2 emissions. And so many products these days are just made out of polyester, which is not a biodegradable product. So when you look at the relation to what is being made, the quality of like that, and the usage that it gives us in relation to what it's taking away or maybe giving us in terms of a negative impact, it's not an equal equation.
Yeah, so like also a lot of the you touched on it very briefly there, the microfibers and the microplastics that come off it in the end as well. So it's the production, it's the usage, and then it's after you finish using it as well. It's like the whole journey of like this item of clothing, this polyester things and stuff like that, the whole journey of every step of the way, it's affecting the planet. It's the kind of how I interpret that in a general term. Now,
also, when you own it and you wash your clothes, they also release microfibers, and in the case of polyester, then those are microplastics that then come into our water system.
So it's literally every step of the way, like even when you're not wearing it, it's still affecting the planet.
And it's not only affecting the planet. I mean, like these are strong chemicals, and we're wearing them on our skin, and our skin is our biggest organ. So we're absorbing what we put on our skin. So it's so important to think about what the fabrics are, also what laundry detergent you're using, because in the end you're putting that into your body, even if you don't so consciously do it as to drink something.
So now we've got an idea of why it's a bad thing. What are some of your top tips to helping people kind of step away from fast fashion and move into a more sustainable attire, should we call it?
I think it's, it always depends a bit on what your situation is, but one thing I always do if I buy something new is just taking the time to think about, okay, what would I wear this with? And do I have something similar, and then imagining the situation and then thinking about what of the two items would I choose. This has saved me from buying so many shoes. I used to buy so many shoes, and at some point I would ask myself this question, and then I actually owned like a pair of shoes that were actually really comfortable and fit to a lot of things, and I would always come back to those and think, I don't need another pair because I probably won't really wear them more than once or twice. So I think that's yeah, asking yourself that, how often you're going to wear it. I think the materials are those materials you feel comfortable in. Like, look at what you own and see, like, what are the items that I wear a lot and why do I wear them a lot? And so that you can use those same thoughts if you're buying something new to look at what is something that you're actually going to really appreciate and wear a lot, if that item includes those same reasons. I think that's like a very basic one that you can just always incorporate no matter what. Then, of course, I mean, looking secondhand before buying something new is great. There's so many online platforms where you can do this. We recently made a guide post as well to help people navigate this online reselling way of buying and selling clothes. Then, yeah, when you buy new items, something that's kind of cool to do, which even if you're not buying something, but if you're in, let's say, a shopping mall or so, and you see a store that just obviously doesn't have sustainable brands in it, just to go in, like, find like a sustainable brand, like Google it, let's say a sneaker store, and then go in and ask them, hey, do you sell this brand? And then just ask, oh, do you sell other like fair trade ethical sneakers? And if they say no, just leave the store. Like, it's just like a great way of showing that, motivating retailers also to incorporate that more into their buying.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Now I'm going to ask one more question. Now, you've touched on it a little bit there. About sustainable clothing, it can sometimes be expensive. Obviously, the quality. Actually, no, I'm going to rephrase that. Sustainable fashion isn't expensive. It's seen to be expensive because fast fashion is so cheap. So how can we kind of discourage people away from this high street fashion? This fast fashion and more towards the second hand or the better quality, longer lasting. Again, you mentioned briefly before, but I find it difficult when I speak to someone and they're like, oh, look at this, it's brilliant. I got this t-shirt for €3 at online high street place, or when the sales come out and it's just, everybody rushes and thinks, wow, this is amazing. Everything's so cheap when it's already really too cheap. So yeah, how can we discourage that in other people without sounding like, hey, you're doing the wrong thing, you need to do it differently? Like, because I'm trying to get it across with positivity and stuff. And there are some things that it's really hard. And, with food, for example, you tell somebody, you should be vegan. Kind of, they get defensive. But with clothes, you're not necessarily telling them where to buy or what they're wearing isn't nice, but to kind of suggest they go more sustainable. How can we suggest people go more sustainable?
I guess it's like a question if you're like in a one-on-one conversation, or if you're writing a blog, or if you're making a YouTube video. I think those are very different like ways of going about it. And obviously it's very individual. For sustainable fashion matters, and for myself, I definitely go the way of highlighting solutions. I have definitely seen that if once you go and you call brands out for greenwashing and so on, that's always very popular to do. But the world I want to live in is a world where I see people doing amazing things, and not a world where I see, a world of positive examples and not a world of, you know, bashing the bad all the time. And I think that's also kind of important, like in terms of self-care when you're getting into like talking about sustainability, because I mean, honestly, it can be super depressing. And so I think it's really important to really, you know, also focus on the good things, like people who are doing nice stuff, and to support each other and to create a community with one another, because that's what's gonna help you on your really bad day where you're thinking, oh no, what's happening now here with the world. So yeah, for me, it's always like, otherwise in a conversation, totally individual who I'm talking with, to know like, okay, what is like an aspect this person cares about, that can be from like comparing buying clothes to the way you choose your friends, of like, why would you not choose a brand that is like, has the same character traits as the friendships you seek out, or
I like that.
or to go for like concrete facts of water pollution and water usage, and because these are things, because often it can feel far away, but when you're like, well, no, actually we have microplastics in our water here already, like it's not an issue of somewhere else, like this does apply to you and to me, and yeah.
Well, that's amazing. I'm going to say thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure having you on the lesson and in this interview. So yeah, thank you so much for your help. Obviously, we're going to add all the information below about your blog and your site and everything on there, so everyone can go on there. I really recommend everyone goes and checks out the facts page as well. You know, just to, again, as you mentioned, the hardcore facts are always really helpful for people to actually see and think, that's ridiculous. You know, that's,
yeah,
7,000 liters of water. It's just way too much. It's just way too much. So
yeah,
thank you so much for coming on today. It's been
thank
an
you.
absolute pleasure. And I'll see you around.
Yeah.